Hey guys, here's our second video of today. So we already talked about the Pythagorean theorem. And we've talked in the past about isosceles and equilateral triangles. Okay, so now we're going to use properties of a 45, 45, 90 degree triangle and the properties of a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, so we're going to start out with the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay, so here we're given an isosceles triangle. Bear with me, this is kind of complicated stuff, but once you get the hang of it, it's really fun, I think, anyways. Okay, so we're calling the legs L. So here we have the legs of the triangle L. And notice it's an isosceles triangle because we have two 45-degree angles. So now the length of the hypotenuse is square root of 2 times the length of the legs. So we're calling this hypotenuse L root 2. Okay? So when we're solving these, we're going to have two different cases, okay? So case one is that we're given the length of a leg, say it's x, okay? Well, step two, we know that the second leg is also going to be whatever x is because it's an isosceles triangle. They'll be the same. Now, to find the hypotenuse, it has the length x times the square root of 2, so it would just be x root 2, okay? Now case 2 is if we're given the hypotenuse first, okay? So say the hypotenuse has length x, then each leg is x divided by the square root of 2. Okay, now I want to show you something. We're going to get into it in a little bit, but I want to show you something that's kind of neat. So if I had x, I'll just do it over here, okay, divided by the square root of 2. Okay, we can't have the square root on the bottom part of a fraction, if you remember from algebra, so we have to rationalize it. So to do that, we would multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2, okay? And then that would give us x root 2 over, here we have root 2 times root 2, so it's just over 2. So, in the same step of dividing by the square root of 2, you could also say, or we would multiply by root 2 over 2. So you would take half of whatever x is times root 2. Sometimes it'll simplify out, sometimes it won't. So these two cases are something that you definitely want to write down in your notes because we're going to use them a lot. And over here on the whiteboard, I'll draw it out. Okay, so we have right triangle, here's 45 degrees, 45 degrees, here we're given L, L, and L root 2. Okay, so here's our 45, 45, 90 triangle. Now we're going to use it a little bit. Okay, so we have to find x, all right? So x is the hypotenuse, and we're given the length, the leg length. Okay, well, to find the other leg length, we know that will also be 9, because it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle, so it's an isosceles. Now to find what x is, well, if L is 9, then x will be 9 root 2. So we just substitute in that side length for L and tack on that root 2. Okay, here's another one. So now we have 6 root 2 as our side length. And notice it doesn't tell us that it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle, but both of these sides are equal, so that means that their opposite angles need to be equal, meaning that they're both going to be 90. Okay, so in this case, we have 6 root 2 as our length. Okay, well, in order to find our hypotenuse, we multiply the length by the square root of 2. So here we have to take times square root of 2. Well, remember when we have the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, it's just multiplying by 2. So we have 6 times 2. So x equals and solve that, just like we did. Boom, x equals 12. Okay, so here's one for you guys to try at home. Okay, so we're given one of our side lengths is 7 and one of our angles is 45, so we know our other angle will be 45 and this other side length will be 7. If we're given a length to find the hypotenuse, we have to take our length times the square root of 2, so the answer that we should be getting is C, 7 root 2. Okay, here's another one. So now our side lengths are 8 root 2. We still have to multiply those side lengths by the square root of 2. So if we do that, we have 8 root 2 times square root of 2, because that's what we do to find our hypotenuse over here. This turns out to be 8 times 2, which is 16. So we should be getting, again, answer C, x is 16. Okay? So now, this is using that same 45, 45, 90 triangle theorem, but now we're given the hypotenuse and we have to find the legs. So that's case 2. So this is where we're either dividing by the square root of 2 or multiplying by root 2 over 2. It's the same thing, it's just kind of skipping steps. So here we have 8 is our hypotenuse. So I'll just say case 1 over here. If we had 8, okay, and now I'm going to divide by the square root of 2. Okay, well now we still need to rationalize it, so I multiply by root 2 over root 2. Okay, so then over here I get 8 root 2 over root 2 times root 2 is just 2. Okay, I'm not quite done yet. 8 root 2 over 2 can be simplified. I'm going to cross those out, right? So I get 4 root 2. Okay, now notice that we kind of did this in there. So over here, in case 2, if I just wanted to take the 8, okay, and I'm going to multiply that by root 2 over 2. Okay, that gives me 8 root 2 all over 2, and from there I can simplify it to 4 root 2. So there's 2 different ways that you can do that, whichever is your preference. This way is a little bit quicker, but this way is maybe the easier way to remember by just going from the leg to the hypotenuse. Okay, they're going to go ahead and solve it, even though I already did. So we got 4 root 2. Okay. Alright, here's one for you guys to try at home. Remember, you can either divide 6 by the square root of 2 or multiply by 2 root 2. I'm going to do it that way. So I had 6 times the square root of 2 over 2. The 6 over 2 can simplify, so I get 3 root 2. So we should be getting A. 3 root 2 is this missing side. Okay. So here's the 30, 60, 90 degree triangle theorem. This one's a little bit more complicated just because it's not an isosceles triangle, so we have 2 different side lengths. So I'll just kind of walk you through what the theorem's saying. So our short side is S. We're just going to call it S, whatever number it is, okay? And we know that this is our short side because its opposite angle is 30, right? So that's going to be the shortest side in the triangle. Now our other side, our other length of the triangle is S root 3, okay? And then the hypotenuse, that one opposite of the right angle, is 2S. So what it really comes down to is finding S first, if possible, is always going to be the easiest because you're using S in all of them. Okay, so now we have 3 different cases. It's kind of like which one we're given first. Okay, so case 1 is the easiest. It's when the shortest side is given to us. Say it's X. Okay? Next, we'll want to find the hypotenuse because that's really easy. We just double it because it's 2 times X. Okay, now the long leg has that x times the square root of 3. Kind of similar to what we did over here with the root 2, but now it's that other leg times root 3. Okay, that's the easiest case. Now the second easiest case is if they give us the hypotenuse. Let's call the hypotenuse x. Okay? So if the hypotenuse is x, we know that that short side length is going to be half of it. Since the hypotenuse has doubled the short would be half of the hypotenuse. So you could either multiply by 1/2, divide by 2, you get the same thing. Okay? Next step is finding the length of the long leg. Okay? So the long leg is the short leg times the square root of 3. So we said the short leg was x over 2. So then the length of the long leg would be x root 3 all over 2. Okay? Now the harder case is when we're given the long leg first. Okay? So say the long leg is x. We want to find the short leg first because then it would be really easy to find the hypotenuse. So the short leg has the length of x divided by the square root of 3. So we have x over root 3. Now remember what we did over here. If we were given this and we divided by the square root of 2, we can do that same thing. So you either divide by square root of 3, or you could have x times root 3 over 3. Okay? This stuff is going to be really helpful for you guys to write down as well, because when we're going to apply it, doing this on your homework and your test will be really super helpful because we're really laying it out for you to know how to solve it. Okay, so let's just jump in and let's try some. Okay, so now we're applying that 30, 60, 90 triangle theorem. Okay, so we're having to find x and y. In this case, y is our hypotenuse and x is that long leg. Okay, we know that this 4 root 3 over 3 is our short side because it's opposite to that 30, so it's that smaller angle. So we can go ahead and fill in that we know that this angle Q is 60. Okay, so since we're given the short side, we know that we're doing case 1, which is what we did on that other slide. So first, it told us to find the hypotenuse, and that was really easy because all we had to do was multiply the short side by 2. Because over here we have s as our short side and 2s as our hypotenuse. So if we take 4 root 3 over 3, we're going to multiply that by 2 over 1 since we're dealing with fractions. Okay, that equals y, because y is our hypotenuse. Okay, if we go ahead and solve this out, we get 4 times 2, so 8 root 3 over 3, and that's what our long side, or our hypotenuse is. Okay, now over here we're going to solve for x. Now remember, when we have our short side, all we do is multiply by the square root of 3 to get that long side. So if we have x is going to equal 4 root 3 over 3 times the square root of 3. Again, we'll just put it over 1 since we're dealing with fractions. Okay, so now over here we're going to have 4 times root 3 times root 3 is 4 times 3. And in our denominator we had 3 times 1, so it was over 3. Now notice we have a 3 on the top and 3 at the bottom. We can cancel those out, so x will equal 4. Okay, we'll go through and they're going to solve it the same way that we did. So they got 4 for their long length, and they got 8 root 3 over 3 for their hypotenuse, which is what we got as well. Okay, so here's one for you guys to try at home. Notice it gives us, I don't know which side length this is, so let's figure it out. Okay, if this is 30, then this is our short leg, so we'll just call that S for now. So we know that this angle B is 60. It's asking us to find BC, which is the hypotenuse. Now this kind of looks like case 3, where it's kind of harder, because this is our S root 3, and this is our 2s, like we have over here in our picture. Okay, so in order to go from s root 3 to 2s, we're going to have to find what s is first. Okay, now this one's actually really nice because it gives us 4 root 3 for our long length. So this is where it might be easier to divide by the square root of 3. Okay, so we have square root of 3 over square root of 3. Those can cancel out. So s equals 4. Okay, now when we're finding the hypotenuse, we multiply it by 2. So 2s, if s is 4, we should be getting b. 8 inches is the length of that BC. Okay, so this one is really nice because it gave us that root 3 right there, so it could just disappear when we divide it out. Okay, so here's an example. We're talking about quilt patterns. So we have a square that's 3 inches by 3 inches, and it's divided into 8 isosceles triangle. Oh, if the length of one side of the square is 3 inches, what are the dimensions of each triangle? Okay, well, if this side of the square is 3, we know that this side of the square will be 3 as well. Okay, now I'm just going to highlight one triangle. Let's just highlight this one for now. Okay. Since it's cut right in half of this 3 and this 3, we know that this side length will be 1.5 and this side length will be 1.5. Okay, now this makes it an isosceles triangle, so it must be a 45, 45, 90 triangle since this is a right angle in here. So really all we have to do is find, I'll use a different color, that length because it's asking for the dimensions of the triangle. So we can use this 45, 45, 90 theorem to find out what that hypotenuse is. Well, if we have the length, which is 1.5, we multiply the length by the square root of 2. So this length must just be 1.5 root 2. So that would be the dimensions of the triangle. And they're going to go through a really long way of solving it, which is exactly what we did. They substituted in that 1.5, and that's what we had. And now they want us to check using the Pythagorean theorem, and it checks out. So we did some good work. Okay, so here's an example for you guys to try. So Shayna designed 2 identical bookends according to the diagram below. Use special triangles, these are the special triangles, to find the height of the bookends. Now notice these are similar, or identical is what she said, so we're dealing with some congruent triangles here. So if this bottom is 5 inches, this bottom will also be 5 inches. Okay? And this angle up here is 30, and this angle up here is 30. Okay? We know that they're congruent because how silly would that be to have 2 bookends that were different sizes? Your books wouldn't be very straight. Okay? So, now that we have the 30, 60, 90 triangle, we know that we're using this guy over here. Okay, so we're given the short side. We have to find x, which is the long side. So according to this, if we have s to find the long side, we just multiply it by the square root of 3. So our answer should be a 5 times square root of 3. Okay, so our assignment here is page 562. We're going to do 9 through 33 odd. As always, let us know if you have any questions on it. Wish you the best of luck, guys.